Hello everybody and welcome to a new video from Organian's Puzzle Box, as you can see right here from the tag. Right, so in today's video I wanted to show you guys how to use the Cloud Forge in tandem with the Atmos Forge in this scene set up in a mountain sort of area that I've crafted in for Unreal Engine. Now this particular scene is available for download for free from Patreon. I'll probably put it on ArtStation and Gumroad as well, so you'll see the link in the description below. But why not have a look on Patreon instead, and maybe you'll find something there that you like and potentially buy a project from me and give me a coffee for these efforts that I put in. Anyway, I'm joking, right? But you know how you guys know I love coffee, right? Anyway, what I wanted to say was that we have created the scene. It's all about using the Atmos Forge and the Cloud Forge together to be able to create some incredible, breathtaking sort of environments rich with atmosphere. Now, the Atmos Forge is the new addition to the Cloud Forge project, but it's also available as standalone on the Unreal Engine Marketplace. It's going to be on Fab and so on. Effectively, you can get Cloud Forge and get access to the Atmos Forge, or you can just get the Atmos Forge if you're not interested in the VDB system that the Cloud Forge provides. This particular project is all about empowering you, the user, to create some incredible cloudscapes. And as you've probably seen in the footage before, a lot of stuff can be achieved with these two systems put together. So I hope they will serve you well. And let's not delay it any further. Let's start. Okay guys, now you know how I like to start this sort of stuff. I want to show you exactly what we've got. So this is the scene that you will be getting for free from the description below on Patreon if you'd like it. Now, the scene will contain the meshes, all these meshes and an auto material. So everything that you see here, apart from the clouds themselves. And obviously by the time we finish this tutorial, we will be having some more clouds in the scene than what you're seeing here. Because right now only the Atmos Forge is the thing that's actually on. We don't have any of the Cloud Forge blueprints in the level. So this particular scene, as you can see all around, is just something where we've got some clouds rolling through the scene like that very nicely, and they are based on certain parameters that I've set. They're actually quite close to the ground, and they're rolling through these mountains. And if we try to move around this particular scene, we'll be able to see and hear just how they interact with everything else. So these clouds are currently touching these these mountain sort of slopes, and they are quite nicely blending together. Now all of this snow that you're seeing around is actually material controlled as well, so you can decrease it if you'd like. And obviously all of these are individual meshes that you can just move around, and they've also got the RVT enabled. So the cloud itself, the Atmos Forge, is a blueprint that contains a lot of options, and we're going to go through most of this stuff as we actually start putting the scene together. So let's not delay it, and let's actually start that so that you can really see how easy it is to set up a scene like this using the Atmos Forge, and then pepper it in with more detail using the Atmos Forge. And again, just bear in mind, everything here is customizable that you're looking at. Okay, now let's begin by first removing the Atmos Forge and then re-adding it. So when we press delete on the Atmos Forge, you can see that the entire scene is now completely dark because we have no more sun or anything like that. Everything comes with the Atmos Forge. So inside the content folder where you have the Atmos Forge folder, just go into the blueprint folder and drop in the Atmos Forge. You'll notice that straight off the bat, the Atmos Forge is now settled in, and you have a complete lighting solution with the clouds enabled and everything else that you need. Everything is found within the blueprint. Now, with that done, we also want to add a Cloud Forge blueprint. So we're going to go into our Cloud Forge and then go to Blueprint and then drop the BP Cloud Forge VDB. And we're going to drop this in the scene, maybe bring it a bit further up like that. And now we're not seeing anything because we haven't yet added a VDB. Over here where it says sparse texture under the array selector, just add in a I don't know, with VDB. So we'll do 0.6. Now we still can't see it, and that's because the scale of this is quite small. So for a scene like this, we probably want to turn it to like 1000. It's still not visible because our trace distance here, where it says set trace distance, is not high enough. So we're going to set that a lot larger, and now we can see the cloud from the Cloud Forge. Now I would also like to, I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, this is a bit too bright. And we do have a density slider that can help with effectively playing around with that particular, just how dense the clouds are and just generally how much light they capture. But one thing that we can do is go down here and on the cloud self shadow, we can just increase this maybe to like a 2, which will then help with that. Now, these particular items over here, these values will allow you to self shadow the cloud sort of like from different directions, but I would definitely, just be mindful that the clouds generally have a pivot point from which their clouds, the self-direction starts, and it's not always what you'd expect. It's because how VDBs are important in Unreal Engine, unfortunately. Right, so with that done, we can now have a look and see, do we want to add an extra cloud shadow, leave that to a 1, or maybe like a 1.5, I think that makes sense. And I would also desaturate the cloud to 0.6, and then change the scattering color to something a bit more bluish in tone, so it gives us a bit more of an oomph in the cloud sort of visualization. Maybe even try a bit more, like going a bit darker, something like that. And now this cloud looks a bit more ingrained within the scene, as you can see. Now, this is quite useful because we have this cloud and we can drop it wherever we want, and it's a localized cloud. One thing we can also do is we can add another VDB in here, maybe Common Olympus 03, and if we want to select that one, we can just change the 0 to a 1, and now we've loaded this cloud in. But we're going to switch back to 0 for now, and we are going to want to, place our cloud maybe somewhere around here. We're also going to increase its scale maybe to like a 2. But we're just going to create these sort of like clouds that are kind of within the mountain range, and it's, we're just going to make them nicely blend in like that. We're also going to decrease their density maybe to like a 1 again. Actually, I don't know. It's a bit tricky to, depending on the cloud that you're loading. Right, so once we have that, to make it fully sort of like work with this particular cloud, this particular mountain in the scene, we're also going to add cloud movement. We're going to go down here and we're going to enable cloud movement, which is going to allow us to effectively have these clouds move in this direction based on a noise texture. So it's now changing the cloud shape and making it sort of work differently. We can change the, like the scale of the noise. So now it's extremely small, or you could just make it bigger. So maybe something like, you can make it bigger like that. Maybe a 2. That works nice. And then from a cloud flow direction, you can increase its speed, for example, if we'd like this to move a lot faster by doing this, or change its direction, maybe 0.05, so it's going in the other direction. And you can obviously combine this with various other different sort of functions, maybe something like that, make it go in that direction, right? And now that we have this, we can actually drop another cloud, just Alt and drag away. And then in there, we will change that to the other cloud. But now this is very dense, so we're probably going to want to change that density a bit further down. It's just way too dense, maybe something like that. And then we're also going to change the self shadow. It's coming from that direction, so we don't really want that. We're just going to reset it and maybe not invert it, sorry. Maybe something like that. Just trying to come from this end. Yeah, something like that. And then we'll change the actual cloud movement scale to a 1. Yeah, I think that's working quite well, and then put it somewhere around in here, right? And you can see now both of these clouds are pushing in the same direction, and depending if the light shines directly on them or not, they will be a bit more shadowed. Now bear in mind that Unreal Engine 5.4, this is running in 5.3 right now, but you can run it in 5.4 no problem. In 5.4, these clouds do have self shadows as well, and they receive shadows better from the overall scene. Now I've got 2 cloud forges. I've got the Atmos Forge. Time to play with the Atmos Forge, because that's got more options to play around with. So we're going to select the Atmos Forge, and then within here, we can then play around with all of these settings, and I'll start from the beginning just so you're aware of how to use it. So first things first, like I've said to you before, the Atmos Forge is a full lighting solution. Now in here, you'll have a volumetric atmosphere category. So this one will allow you to, for example, make the Atmos Forge be available to edit in real time. So if we click this and now we press play mode, you'll notice that with the Atmos Forge selected, we can actually change everything about this particular system, right? That's very, very cool. Now we can also go in here and, I don't know, make the clouds a lot taller or a lot smaller, or, you know, change its altitude or lower its altitude. The point is that not a lot of systems like this allow you to do this. Now we can get out of the edit mode, the play mode, and we can leave that on. This also means the sequencer will be able to access everything in here. We do have a tick box for volumetric atmosphere in case you want to disable it. I don't know why you do that, but you can do it. We can then untick the volumetric clouds if you don't want them at all. You'll notice that there is a skybox in the sky, and it's also animated by a flow map if you want to have just a skybox with these clouds, and you can put whatever HDRI skybox you want in this. We can also disable volumetric cloud high quality if you'd like, which makes these clouds run at a far higher frame rate than, you know, being at high quality. There is another quality level later on that we can change as well. You can also decrease the atmosphere height if you'd like to lower that down. You can also play with the scale and the colors of it. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. We can also disable the light entirely, and you can add your own custom light. So if you disable that and then go in here and drop in a directional light, then, you know, you'll have a directional light effectively that you can then move around as you see fit. And as you can see, this is now editable just as a normal directional light, and it functions with the CloudForge clouds as well. So it's not really a problem. It's just this particular directional light is just extremely intense. So let's just put that down to maybe like a 3 or a 1 or something like that. It's just too intense for this particular scene. And yeah, but as I've said to you, it really depends on how you set it up. Now I'm going to re-enable back directional light from the from here, from our system. We can also enable and disable light shafts. So if you look at the sun, we can disable the light shafts or keep them on. We are also able to control the light using this light pitch function, which just pushes the cloud all the way down into the, you know, like that, into the twilight zone, or all the way onto the other side like that. And there's another thing that you'll notice as we do this. Let me just turn it all the way to here. You'll notice that there are stars in the sky, and we will be able to load more stuff like this. Like further down, we are able to also load the Milky Way. So over in here, I'm just going to search for Milky. And then you'll notice that we do have the Milky Way up into the sky. And if we go above the cloud layers, if we fly above the cloud layers, you'll be able to see that the Milky Way is up there in the beautiful stars, right? And, you know, further updates will add things like the moon and all that stuff that I'm working on. Right, okay, let's go back and let's push our light pitch to maybe something like that. We have a light intensity, which number 3 is the one. Sorry about that. We also have the fog density, so we could increase or decrease the fog depending on the sort of like the settings that you'd like. So normally, I don't know, I like to keep it around there, but you could probably also go like that if you'd like. But this is going to help you to make the scene a lot better. We also have the falloff for the cloud, and then we also have a section for local volumetric clouds. If we click this button, we will be able to generate VDB volumetric clouds with this. So all you really need to do is just press this plus button to add multiple points, and then once you've added them like that, you can drag them about, and then you're able to also scale them. So let's say, you know, we've got this cloud here, we can scale it down, scale it on this axis, whatever you want to do, and then you can change them in here. If you drop other VDBs in these slots, it will basically change what sort of cloud you are sampling. So have fun with that. It's it obviously replaces the normal you know, full dynamic cloud system with these localized ones, but you can toy around with this as much as you'd like. I'm going to then disable this. It's obviously got its own height and so its own height and altitude, bottom altitude as well. So this helps to further enhance these clouds or change them as well. Now I'm going to disable this and go back to our usual system. And then what we have in here, we've got the cloud control. So this is the material. You don't want to change that unless you create custom versions of this material. But these other options in here where it says the cloud mask. So if we change this to number 4, for example, you'll notice our clouds have now changed to something completely different. Now we can also change it to 6. We can change it to 3. So there's a lot of different variations that I've added within this project that, you know, to fit your needs effectively, depending on what you're trying to achieve. I like the number 5 the most, to be honest. Now there's also cloud main texture and second texture for the actual volumetric, cube textures that it's using. So you might want to, like the volume texture that we're using, we might want to change this maybe to like, look at, if we change it to this shape, it's going to give us like diamond shaped clouds, or we could do like a purlin balance, and then we can change this again to, we just change it to that diamond shape again. And as you can see there, it creates like these massive sort of cloud shapes, which again could be quite useful depending on what you're making. Obviously you can see the clouds that are moving and also, you know, disappearing and appearing. We can change that with a wind system. So let me just reset this to default values, and then we have in here per sample transmittance, which is going to change how the colors of the the sun interact with the directional light plus the clouds. So we'll leave that disabled for now. Now we have the cloud volumetric color. We can change it. We also have the height. So in our particular scene before, we had it set to 40, actually 47, and then we had the bottom layer set to -2. This will bring the clouds all the way to the ground, as you can see there, which is quite cool as well. We can then increase this particular, these options. If I increase the second one, that's going to make these clouds look a lot better, but it's also going to destroy my computer performance, and I don't really want to do that while I'm showing you guys how to use this system. It's definitely meant just for cinematics only, not for normal. The rest of these settings are all about shadowing, self-shadowing of the clouds. So as you play around with these, you'll be able to get various different sort of effects of cloud self-shadow and things like that. I would normally leave them as they are, but you can change them if you'd like. There's also a direction for the wind and, you know, the cloud controls in general, which are going to go a bit in depth now as well. All right, so cloud controls. Now, if we play around with this particular setting, let's say -1, you'll see that these clouds are going crazy, right? And that's that's really, it's not really great. But there's a movement of the clouds that it keeps pushing them in one direction, and there's another one that's consuming them. So again, you want to balance this out depending on what you're trying to achieve. Let me just try a 1. You can see in there it's again moving very, very quickly, so you definitely want to play around with very small settings. Sorry about that. You don't want to move it too fast, maybe something like that. That's quite nice. Obviously these clouds are very close to the ground right now. You can see those light rays as well, by the way, just pushing through. And we have cloud shadows as well, which you probably noticed. I mean, look at that, that's beautiful. Like, this here is why I love this system. It just gives so much personality to everything because of the fact that it can just create these really, really cool cloud shadows across your landscape. And it's just so nice, you know, it just gives so much personality to it, so much character. Right, we can also play around with the scale of this system. Now, this is in particular, speed scale is in particular meant to affect how these function. So if you have lower values here, this is not really going to do much. But then the wind intensity is going to make quite a difference. Unfortunately, I'm not really able to show you that difference. Maybe something like that. And basically now the wind is affecting the cloud in far larger sort of stripes. Effectively, that's what's happening. I'm also going to go in here and just lift the clouds up because they're just too close to the ground right now for us to be able to really see what we're doing. And I'm going to go down here to the clouds phase shift, and as we change this number, and by the way, this could obviously be edited live as well, you can see how cool this is to play around with and what sort of effect it's giving us. So it's effectively changing all the scales of all the clouds at the same time. And then we have individual scales down here that you can also play with and just make sure that, you know, you get more detail on the cloud, get less detail. So I like to really create some bulky clouds using this system, or sometimes if I need them to be very, very, you know, small like that, small chunks like that, I can do it as well. We also have a cloud density system, you know, amount here, so we can make these clouds very dense, or we can make them very light to the point where they just start disappearing from the sky. So that's really useful as well. And then we have options such as the cirrus cloud. So we can enable a cirrus cloud, which is at the top there. And if we want to see that across the sky, let me just try and increase some of its settings and the opacity. And you can see now we have it pretty much spread above the sky right there. It's pretty much everywhere. And if we disable it, you'll see how it all disappears in one go. And then we have options in here such as the cumulonimbus. So we can see if we change this, it will affect various different clouds. We can also play around with their densities, their contrast of detail, their max density, and their size if we want to make them smaller or bigger or make them disappear entirely. We then have a cirronimbus, which is effectively a layer between the cirrus and the cumulonimbus cloud, and we can really play around with this even further to like add more detail, add another, because this system is running on 4 layers, 4 cloud layers. So you can see there just like the cirrus and the cumulonimbus coming together to create a pillar, well, not a pillar, but like a blanket of clouds all across the sky, which is really good. And then we have a stratus, which is effectively going to turn your entire scene into like an overcast all the way to a rainy, you know, pretty much desolate kind of looking cloud. Now, unfortunately, the Cloud Forge will not be affected by the lack of sunlight as much unless you really push this down and the directional light really starts losing its ability to shine. But these clouds will still, you know, get quite a lot of light from the skylight, which unfortunately is not something that I can fix at the moment, but I will try in the future. Now, we do have then the skybox part. And this is where you can see that there is actually a, I mean, if we press this, that skybox texture of a cloud, aka cloud, disappears, but we can bring it back like that. This is the cloud. We can change this to another one if we would like something else. And we could also like not have, you know, like remove the cloud entirely. And we can then load up some more stars in here. So let's say we do small, large, and the Milky Way. The settings for the brightness of the cloud skybox will automatically change based on the directional light. And then we also have a flow map that controls the flow of that overcast sky. But if we now go to our light pitch and we take this down, you'll notice there's a lot of stars in the sky, including the Milky Way, including, there's, as I said, a lot of stars. There's a lot of stars. We can fly above the clouds and have a look at them. And by the way, this system is not just this. Like, I'm not, you know, we're not joking around. We can really zoom out here, you know, quite a lot. Let's just try and zoom out to like that. So interestingly enough, we seem to be having a bug with it, but I don't think it's related to the blueprint. It's effectively not letting me go. Like if I change those settings, then the clouds disappear, but if I hide them and bring them back, then the clouds reappear at a different sort of rate. And you can see them now, they're just kind of like following the curvature of the atmosphere. And the best thing is that we can actually increase this. So if I go over here, by the way, this, you can change this from, I mean, it works from here as well. It's just odd that it's like not updating, even though you're doing it. Anyway, but if you do that, then we can actually play around with the atmosphere or like ground radius. If we bring that down, you can see that we're now restricting just how much this is able to like shine above. So what we can do is bring the atmosphere maybe to like a 5 or something like that. We would need to disable the height fog entirely. So I will put that to 0 so there's no height fog, and you can see there, right? We don't have a planet, so obviously there's nothing blocking these clouds. Anyway, you get what I mean. Right, okay, so we've got that. Obviously this is not looking incredible right now, but that's nothing's going to stop us from making it look incredible. We could make it look a lot better. So I'm just going to like maybe go for like a 20 on the atmosphere, and we can obviously increase the ground radius or decrease it. For argument's sake, I'm just going to decrease it just so we get better performance here, like that. And now we can play around with a volumetric cloud height, because you know what, we can really try to push this out there quite a lot. So I'm also going to decrease its amount of the bottom layer. Now I have an interesting sort of shape here. Let's see, maybe like that. Obviously I'm not going to play with these two settings because it's just going to like tank my performance while I'm filming, but they would definitely help right now if we were to use them. Now what we can do is further play around with these settings here. Now we just need to find the ones that would properly affect this. So maybe just increase increase this scale to maybe like 1,000 or something like that. This is only affecting the clouds at the stratus level, so it's not great. It's not gonna show us much. So I'm gonna do something like a 512, maybe something like that. Okay. Now one thing that I do want to do in a future update is to add a limit to how much the clouds are pressing versus the against the atmosphere, because right now they're just doing too much of that, and the layering is just not good enough. You know what I mean? So I definitely want to improve that. I'm gonna just play around with the cloud phase shift a little bit just to give it a bit more detail, like that. And maybe, I don't know, yeah, probably leave that there to where it was. And we could probably play around a little bit with the wind just to make it sort of like change shape. So it's now coming this way. You can see it's also got like a wave coming from there. So this is some really, like I've said to you guys, this is some really interesting sort of stuff that we can do. And obviously we could change this a bit, even more. Now, some of the stuff that I would do is, like, for example, not use a Cyrus, for example, because that's just going to remove some of that top layer clutter. And then I would probably not use a Cyro Nimbus either, because again, that's kind of going to remove some of that top layer clutter. Maybe something like that. Just make sure that there's no Cyrus visible. And then we have a stratus coverage, which I think I'm happy with that. And then I think the Cumulonimbus is going to be doing much of the heavy lifting here. But again, I wouldn't really recommend using this as a final product right now, because it's just simply not ready. It needs a lot more work before it's actually, space ready, let's say. I would definitely urge you guys to like really let me fully develop it before you start using it. And you some people will come into the Discord and will ask questions about how to do X, Y, and Z, and I probably will try. I mean, I'm definitely going to try and help, but what I mean is I'm probably not going to have the answers that you're looking for, because I don't know yet either myself. I still need to develop this. But I think it's getting there, really. I think it's it's definitely evolving into a planetary cloud system, and that's really the end goal here for me. So now we're back to normal. This is, back to the usual state of the Cloud Forge and Atmos Forge. I didn't go quite in depth on the Atmos Forge, on the Cloud Forge, because we've already done this quite a few times before. So now you can use the Atmos Forge in conjunction with the Cloud Forge. So I hope you guys enjoy this. It has taken me a while to put it together, but I really wanted to showcase what can be done. The Atmos Forge is a very rich system, full of options. It can be used in cinematics, it can be changed in real time, and it works very well in tandem with the Cloud Forge, which is localized clouds within your scene. There are a lot of bells and whistles under the hood. There's a lot of customization available as well, and I will keep supporting this as I go forward. I am not going to stop uploading new updates to these particular projects. So if you get them now, you will get access to all future updates as well for free. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you've learned something. I hope you can use this in your own toolkit. Please share with me your work, what you've done, images, videos, and so on. I will gladly host them on Instagram, Discord, YouTube. Just send them over and I will feature them. So I'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you for watching and keep creating.